Good evening, folks, and welcome to Ridgecrest Talk, the Thursday night edition. I'm Al Huey, along with my partner, Robert Eierman, and our special guests tonight are Kathy and Stuart Fields. Glad to have you folks with us this evening. Appreciate you coming out.
Thanks for taking your time.
And we're going to talk again a little bit about the water issue here in our valley. Mr. Fields has weighed in on it quite a few times in the debates we've been having over the last several months. Actually, longer than that, but I mean, when we had the issue with the county wanting to rezone properties, it got pretty high.
You forget that was 6 months ago, and the lead up to that was another 6 months before that.
Yeah, so last year, I guess.
There you go.
But anyway, before we get into that too much, tell us a little bit about your history here in the valley and how you came here and where exactly your property is located and that type of thing.
Well, I got out of school at Chico in 1965, and China Lake made an offer as an electronics engineer, and I grabbed it because I didn't want to live in L.A. or San Francisco. I was looking for a place to live that's outside of all that kind of clutter. So we came down here in '65, and of course at that time you lived on base.
That's right.
That didn't last too long. Pretty soon there was a lot of pressure to get rid of the base housing, so we bought property out just north of Inyokern. Three of us bought 40 acres, and we split it up in thirds. And we had a group well for a long time that serviced the three of us. And we went overseas. And
did you guys drill the well, or was it already there?
No, we had it drilled. And,
okay.
Put that water, and then we actually ran pipes both directions to service the three houses. So we've still got a backup system out there for another well. And so I built out there in 1972. I built my own house. And we still operated off that mutual well until we went overseas in '86. Yeah. Took a job offer with the Army in the island of Kwajalein, where they catch all those missiles being shot out of Vancouver.
Oh.
We had a great time.
And that was, oh boy, it was a great time over there. We came back in '94, though. We retired from the civil service over there and sailed our sailboat down and went to work for the Marshallese government as a disaster relief office. Turns out they had the same agreement with FEMA that Kansas had. So they needed an office of somebody who was aggressive enough to deal with FEMA. They hired the two of us, and we set up their disaster relief office.
Cool.
So we did have a little bit of interface with FEMA, which I hope I never repeat. We ended up having a saying, if you have a disaster and FEMA shows up, you now have two disasters. But we came back here, and we were originally planning on selling and getting out of California for a bunch of reasons. And we bought property in Utah, right on a runway, which is, I'm in aviation a bit. And we couldn't sell out here. The property values at that time in '94, I guess it was, 95, were kind of taking a bath. So we tried to sell, couldn't sell, so Utah started doubling our property taxes every year, so we sold our 30 acres sitting right on a nice runway up there, right at the top of the bubble, which tickled the hell out of me. But then we started putting improvements in out here, but I noticed I drilled my own well, got off of that community well, and we started making water measurements on it, and this was back in '97. And that water and that well has dropped 20 feet since we put the well in.
To be clear, your property is located between commercial pistachio and alfalfa.
We're 1 mile off of Brown Road on Siebenthal, so we're right in the middle of that area between Brown Road and 395.
Okay.
And the pistachios came in to the west of us. And then the alfalfa guy, who at one time he said he's going to raise carrots, but he's growing alfalfa like crazy. And he's pumping water like crazy, too, out there. And our well was dropping at about a foot a year on the average, and it's gone up to almost 2 feet. And we got to talking to Kern County Water Agency, and the guy that measures all these wells, he says that's his experience, too, that the well drop rate has gone up to about 2 foot a year, about doubled. Well,
and that would depend on exactly where you are in the valley.
No, he's measuring wells all over the valley. And he says the average has gone to about 2 foot a year. That's what he told us.
Because when this was all going on 6 months ago, and we went out and talked to some of the farmers and property owners out there and actually had them on the show. And we were talking before the show, this individual that's, I guess, located real close to where you live,
Must be.
between the alfalfa farm and the pistachio farm. He isn't seeing that kind of drop in his well. Now, he had to drill a new casing. It was, when he bought the property, the well wasn't performing well, and it was due to a bad casing, I guess. So he had a driller come in. He went a little deeper, but he put in new casings, and he's measured it. And he's not, I'm not saying he's not seeing any drop, but we're talking an inch or so a year.
Right, nothing substantial. And,
Right.
and when we were talking with the with the pistachio farmers, some of them had the same problem, that their water supply was not as good as they wanted. So they did the same thing. In fact, I think one of them was a new well, but I'm not sure.
Right.
But the point is they put in huge and what they considered to be proper casing, went down to the right level, did all the things at the bottom, and now they can pump, what did he say? Close to 4,000 gallons a minute, or
Sounds
a
like the
huge
alfalfa.
amount of
Yes.
water.
They're not pumping that much,
No,
but they
they're-
have that capability.
Capability, yes.
Well, you've got to kind of stop and think here a minute, because this 1 foot a year table drop was reported in the 60s. It's been going on for some time. Now, if you go back in history, this water table has been dropping for a long time, not just since the ag moved in.
You're absolutely right.
Now you move in 1,600 acres of pistachios, and you're going to sit and tell me that the water table isn't dropping faster?
Well, I'm not sure that I agree with you relative to the water table. I agree with you that measuring wells, it indicates a drop.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. But that's not the same thing. in
And there's
my
another
opinion.
well, remember, Robert, off of Inyukern Road, that's actually on Navy property, that shows no drop in the water level.
Remember, Todd report had 8 wells out of this whole valley that didn't show a drop.
Okay?
And there's
So I
supposedly-
guess what we're saying, we're getting ready to go to break here. When we come back, let's talk about how we can have that difference of somebody over here having 1 to 2 foot of drop a year, and then the person over here, an inch or so. But we're going to take our first break. Join us when we come back with Kathy and Stuart Fields talking about water.
And welcome back to the second segment of Ridgecrest Talk, the Thursday night edition. I'm Robert Ironman, along with Al Huey, and our guests tonight are Stu and Kathy Fields. And we're talking, what else? Water.
But I want to back up a bit. Earlier you'd mentioned you were into aviation a little bit. I read a little bit. You also designed radar rotor bases or something?
I designed, I had a crash with a helicopter that I built, and it come to find out if I'd have had some way of knowing that the rotor speed was slowing down. The thing went into a violent vibration, and I couldn't read my instruments. So I said, if I had something that told me the rotor speed was decaying, I might have added more throttle to try and recover. So I designed and developed a rotor speed audio signal that would beep in your headset.
Mhm.
If it was too high, you got a squeal. If it's too low, you got a beep, beep, beep. And so, yeah, we were in the business of selling those.
So are you
for a
still
while.
in aviation?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
I've now got a different helicopter that I'm playing with.
A homemade one or?
It's a homemade, yeah.
Cool.
Turbine powered though. This one's actually got a helicopter engine in it. The others didn't.
1-seater, 2-seater?
2-seater.
Oh, cool. You been up with him?
Not in the ship
in
yet,
this-
no. It's new enough, so it's still testing out,
Is it
feeling it out.
classified as experimental or? Oh, okay. Cool.
And it's got enough power to go over the top of Owens if I want.
Wow.
It's a nice
317
ship.
horsepower, and I only need 150.
Wow.
So it's a hot rod.
All right, back to water. We were talking before we went to break about how a well over here doesn't show any real significant drop in water level, and the wells over here are showing 1 to 2 foot drop. How can that be?
Well, Daryl Grandjean, who lived out near Leroy Marquardt, he claims Now, I don't have data. Again, I've got his word that his well is not dropping. Now, I haven't seen the actual measurements, you know, because I've heard this from the people right there on Siebenthal and Brown say their wells aren't dropping either. Okay? I can get the same thing in a bar room. Now, tell me what the measurements are. Give me data.
Right.
Don't just tell me your well.
Well, that's
not
something
dropping.
we've been lacking for a long time here. We have essentially two views. You have the Dr. Carl Austin view that we have water coming in and water flowing out. It's an open basin. And then Dr. Ahmad, who is a firm believer that it's a closed basin and that we only have a limited amount of water coming in and that we're in serious trouble here if we draw too much water out.
Well, even in '88, St. Amand was saying it was dropping.
Oh yeah, it's been
read
going on for a
reports.
long time.
Yeah, the water is dropping, and it's obvious to anybody we're taking more out of the basin than is coming in. We're exceeding our recharge rate. Todd report, I think said 3 to 5, factor of 3 to 5. The
Yes.
numbers that I come up with show a factor of 3 real quick. Now, you can talk about Kona depression and everything else. If you run out of water, you're out of water. I don't care. It's not being recharged, that's obvious, because the table is dropping. We're taking more out of it than is coming in. That is obvious to anybody that does a study.
Well,
And all this information is available on the internet, and most of the people I hear with opinions have not taken advantage of that. There's 1,000 some odd wells in this valley that they've had initial data on. They're not measuring them all the time, which I wish they would.
Well, again, Dr. Austin would dispute the fact that we're running out of water.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one well. Like I said, the well over here.
Again, I've been measuring. This isn't the only well I've measured. I've been measuring wells right across the valley. I've got some north of me. I've got some across Ridgecrest Boulevard. And every one of them agreed with this kind of data. I mean, within, like
A few inches.
Yeah. I have
Plus-
not found one that isn't dropping yet.
Plus, as was stated before, the Kern County Water Agency has been
Yeah.
measuring wells all across the entire valley, and they are the ones who initially told us that everything had been dropping about a foot and now is increased to something on the order of 2 feet a year. And that has nothing to do with our opinion. It's
No.
what the Kern County Water Department is telling us.
And clearly, part of that reason for it dropping has to be related to the large amount of water being used by agriculture.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think that that's in question either.
Right.
Like I said, I would just argue that a well or all the wells dropping doesn't necessarily mean that the water table itself is dropping, because the water gets sucked up near the well, and around that well that is in use, the water table drops. But that doesn't mean the entire water table drops.
And then when they quit pumping, what happens to it?
It comes back.
How long?
Oh, from what I've heard, anywhere from 100 years to thousands of years.
And guess what? And during that period of time, you're out of water. Then all the wells around that are going to be in trouble.
I don't disagree with you. I just was making the point that
So if
I've heard that same data, by the way.
yeah, it's a different viewpoint. And if you talk with some water experts, they'll tell you that although this area gets water and it gets recharged, if I test the water that is on the ground today, how long before it gets into the water table? And I've heard thousands to tens of thousands of years before it actually gets there.
Again, I can go in a bar room and hear these same numbers. Where are they getting their data from?
I don't know. Dr. Decker gave us this information.
Decker's a good researcher, though.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
So, I've said that repeatedly. I certainly would never question the ability of Dr. Decker to do his research. And so I place a lot of confidence in what he has had to say. But we have the situation that the agriculture is here. So if we could, we've only got a minute. I hate to start it before then, but let me just set it up and we can come back to it after the break. If we could wave a magic wand and grant you the ability to do whatever you think is the right thing to do, I would certainly like to hear what that is.
It's easy.
It's easy.
The solution is easy. We got a problem, and we're going to run out of water if we keep the process going that we got. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. There's only two solutions, three really. One,
Well,
cut back.
we're going to have to get into those three solutions when we get back. A little teaser for you there.
You got to cut us early, huh? Okay.
We only got a few seconds before we go to break. Remember, Thursday night edition here with myself and Robert Ironman and our guests, Stuart and Kathy Fields, and we're talking about water. Join us on the other side of the break where we'll continue this. Welcome back. We're here again with Kathy and Stuart Fields talking about water. And before we went on break, Robert just made him have all the control of all the water in the valley and what the solution would be. And you would say there were going to be three possible solutions. All right.
All right. GSA has until January 2020 to come up with a plan. You want a plan? I've got one. Number one, abolish all ag and IWV. And I've heard even county supervisors say that we never should allow ag and IWV before because of the overdraft situation that has been going on since 1913.
Acknowledge.
All right, abolish all ag, change the zoning to eliminate all future ag. Buy out the farmers, buy them out and cap those wells. Now, the other solution, of course, is to import water, and everybody says that, but I look at them right straight in the face and say, from where?
Yes.
No one comes up with an answer to that.
Yeah.
And at what cost?
Oh, the cost is going to be huge, but
Who's going to pick up the tab?
all the users of the water in the valley is the only fair approach that I can think of.
I can think of the same thing, and I'm willing to pay the same per acre foot that the pistachios are going to pay.
Well, they, according to
Per acre foot.
out there, I think right now they estimate their cost at about $500 an acre foot.
Yeah, that would be cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. And they admit that that is a very reasonable price.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget, what did they say that they would be willing to go to? $1,000 or $2,000 an acre foot?
Yeah, and Conaway, again, mentioned when we were talking to him that he and others, pistachio farmers that he's talked to, would be willing to invest millions into finding a way to bring water in. Water banking or something.
Are we going to have potable water by the time that gets done?
Don't know.
If we don't, you're going to wipe out 29,000 people out of this valley. You're going to convert this valley into a ghost town.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question that if we look at that scenario, that's the obvious result. I don't think that my personal opinion, that that's a very reasonable approach.
Again, I ask you though, forget your opinion, show me some data to back that up. Show
Well,
me that you know how much water we got here that's potable, and show me how that relates to the extraction.
I can only give you what has been said. Now, I can't give you any more than that. You know, and based upon the data that was available to them in 2005, backed up by the Indian Wells Valley Water District, the Navy and the Ridgecrest community said that we've got water for 160 years.
Oh yeah, and that's a crock. Even Tom Mulvihill says that's a crock.
I understand.
But the Navy was right behind that.
Again, take a look at the latest letters from the Navy.
Yes, which I
Which
totally,
one do you trust?
Yeah.
The latest letter. They asked the supervisors.
Why not trust the other one?
Yeah.
Because they weren't reasonable. If you look at that whole thing, you got to read the whole letter because there were some caveats in there.
Yes,
It was
there were.
100 years if you imported water.
In
There's
that
some
letter,
more-
No,
in
but
that
that's-
letter,
You're
that's
taking
exactly what
data
it
out
said.
of out of context.
I don't
No,
think that's
no.
what they said back in 2005.
I think it is.
No, what they said,
I've got a copy of
and what, now I'm not saying that it's right, I'm just saying what they said and certified as truthful under penalty of perjury is that there was enough water to support this valley for 160 years. I'm not saying that's accurate.
If
No. There was no ifs
I
in
got
that
the
document.
at my house.
Do you have
Yes.
the?
A copy of it.
No, I'm talking about the BRAC report.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't say any. There's no
Yes,
ifs
it
in
does.
there.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
The BRAC may not, but the letter that
Right.
supported it
I
did.
understand. I understand. But the point is that
The BRAC is what was reported to
what I was trying to make
Congress.
is there's been very differing
BRAC commission, I should say.
opinions as to when we will run out of water. Now, I agree with you. We run out of water, this valley becomes useless in a ghost town. I don't think that anybody is aspiring to have that happen. But you do understand that the only proper way to stop the ag in the valley is to buy all those farmers
exactly
out.
right.
And you realize how many millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that
Do
is.
you realize how many millions of dollars just the private property owners have invested in this valley?
I completely
that are gonna
agree.
Get wiped out?
No, I agree. So let's go with buying out all those farms. If we could give them an attractive enough price to convince them to abandon their farms. And all I'm saying is that would be many, many millions of dollars. And the only way to pay for that, we're running out of time.
We're running out of time. We're going to have you guys back on. Will you agree to come back on and we'll continue this
Yeah,
discussion?
we'll dig up that BRAC because I
All right.
read that thing and
Yeah, so did I.
It was based on
That's-
false data.
I'm not debating that. I don't argue that could be an opinion.
All right, folks, that's it for tonight. Stay tuned for a short segment we have here when we come back. Thank you for being with us tonight, and we'll continue this discussion on the next show. Join us then. Well, we wanted to take a little bit of time here at the end of the show to acknowledge a friend of ours. He was a personal friend of mine, friend of Robert's, back when we did radio on KZIQ, the Coyote. He was actually a co-host during that time. It was myself, you, Lois, and Gary.
Yes.
Gary Harlan passed away here recently, age 68. I've known Gary and his wife Thelma for quite a few years. I first met Gary up at college when I was attending classes up there, and then I had him join us on the air with when we were doing radio, and we had a lot of fun with Gary.
You have to remember, Gary was one of those people that sometimes you really couldn't get an opinion out of him. No, not true. He was known for being very, having very strong opinions and voicing those opinions.
Yeah, very loudly sometimes.
Yes.
I had to get on him. I remember a lot of times he'd get on top of that mic, and I have the headphones on. It would be blowing my ears out. So, but suddenly he came down with a medical condition, and it went very quickly. So just wanted to acknowledge him. We wish Thelma and his kids all the best in this time of grieving. Gary, we're going to miss you, buddy. You take care while you're up there. We'll be seeing you. Thanks.